The Coen Brothers are two of the most well-regarded filmmakers of the modern-ish era. I say modern-ish because, let's be real, the art of filmmaking is dead. The movie theater is merely an amusement park where you get some cheap entertainment, and real prestige in storytelling on the screen rarely ever appears in movie theaters these days. Normally you can find it on television programs or on streaming services. Regardless of that, though, the Coen Brothers, for the most part, have a near-perfect filmography. Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Fargo, The Big Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, No Country for Old Men, True Grit, Burn After Reading, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, etc. You know, it's an insane filmography for just two brothers to have. What makes the Coen Brothers movies so likable is the fact that they take concepts that are pretty basic and put just the right amount of unique spins on the plot to make them more, like, one of a kind. Furthermore, the way they do dialogue is perfect. They have a way of taking a setting, be it the 1920s, the Old West, Washington DC, the Midwest, or whatever, and creating sort of a fantastical reality out of it. They go out of their way to study regional dialects so that the dialogue seems natural and real, which in turn makes the more outrageous events found in their movies, you know, more palatable and easier to kind of suspend disbelief with. Few filmmakers can do dark comedy the way the Coen Brothers do dark comedy. Even when a movie has completely serious subject matter, they are able to dash humor into it.
That's a dead dog.
Yes, it is.
I personally think when it comes to prestige cinema, the Coen Brothers are at the top of the food chain. They didn't quite have a smooth start in the industry. Blood Simple and Raising Arizona were hits, and then they co-wrote Crime Wave, which was directed by Sam Raimi, which was very poorly received. It almost completely derailed their careers. Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink were critically successful but didn't perform well at the box office, and The Hudsucker Proxy was not very successful financially and had a lukewarm critical reception. But then they hit a stride that would last decades when they released Fargo, a movie that ingrained them into pop culture and cemented them as all-time greats in filmmaking. It's been my favorite Coen Brothers movie for a while. Like, I like all their movies for the most part, but Fargo, for some reason, I don't know, I just really like Fargo. And I think it's a perfect display of, like, perfect writing and directing. I'm gonna kind of just go through a bunch of different subjects on Fargo as a kind of long-form review. But with that being said, as much as we owe the Coens for Fargo in terms of credit, the main cast deserves about an equal amount of credit. Fargo itself has a very well-rounded cast, featuring actors who at the time were kind of names, but were turned into even bigger names because of this movie. William H. Macy plays Jerry Lundegaard, and Macy got the role because initially he was going to be cast in a smaller role, but took the initiative to actually go and get this role as he felt this was the role he was born to play, and he refused to take no for an answer when he tried to get it. And honestly, he was completely in the right for this because he is this character. You can always feel when an actor is meant to be a character, and William H. Macy plays the scheming, wormy, pathetic wretch of a man that is Jerry Lundegaard to a level of perfection. This also goes for Steve Buscemi as Carl Showalter as well, a similar kind of Weasley character as Buscemi is known for playing, but he feels at home in this role. Steve Buscemi is Carl Showalter to a point where you would think that Carl Showalter is just Steve Buscemi. Peter Stormare doesn't get a lot of lines as Showalter's partner Gerrit Grimsrud, but his physical presence is the character and the performance. Without saying a whole lot, you get the idea that he's an intimidating and deranged man, and with what little speaking time he has, Stormare manages to own this role. And again, much like Buscemi and Macy, it led to him getting a lot more opportunities in Hollywood because he was just that damn good. To round out the main cast, we have Officer Gunderson, aka Marge, played by Frances McDormand, aka Joel Coen's wife. I didn't mean that as like a backhanded thing, like it doesn't feel like she's a nepo hire. Despite the fact that she is the director's wife, she is perfect for the part and it feels earned rather than given. We get to see Frances McDormand be kind of funny, but when it's serious, it's serious. And she does a good job of portraying who might be the only truly good person in the main cast. Rounding out the supporting cast, we have Harve Presnell as Jerry's father-in-law Wade Gustafson, John Carroll Lynch as Marge's husband Norm, Steve Rivas as Shep Proudfoot, and Stephen Park of In Living Color fame as Mike Yamagita. But even like the unnamed kind of low-end characters characters are clearly casted with some semblance of care, as they needed to fit into the environment. Every character with a speaking role is noteworthy in one way or another, and that's what makes the casting so great. But if I had to go ahead and say it, truly Buscemi and Macy make this movie, and as a result, they benefited the most from this film, with McDormand and Stormare being other actors who also ended up getting more roles because of this movie. Buscemi was already in some noteworthy stuff by this point, namely Reservoir Dogs, but his stock went up pretty high, and in all honesty, I think without this movie, we would have never had William H. Macy be as big a star as he became. But every single actor in this, from the main cast to the supporting cast to the very small bit players, is beneficial to why this movie works out as well as it does. It's a perfect synergy between the cast and the characters function well within the movie. Now I'm gonna go ahead and say it, this video is made for people who have already seen Fargo previously, but for the benefit of those who haven't, spoilers, and yeah, if you haven't seen it, pause this video, go watch it, come back. But if you're one of those people that just doesn't feel like watching the movie, I'm gonna just do a quick rundown of the events in the movie and a plot synopsis in order to add context to my later subjects.
I want you to tell me what these fellas look like.
Well, the little guy, he was kind of funny looking.
In what way?
I don't know, just funny looking.
Can you be any more specific?
The basic setting for Fargo places it in Minnesota and North Dakota in the year 1987, about a decade before the movie was made. And the plot is that Jerry Lundegaard finds himself in financial trouble after taking out a fraudulent loan for his car dealership and desperately hatches a harebrained scheme to get the money to replace it. This harebrained scheme pretty much includes him staging a kidnapping of his wife who has a rich father, with the end goal being to get the rich father, his father-in-law, to pay a ransom amount. Seems simple enough, but no, it immediately goes completely wrong and spirals into a shitstorm. Conceptually, it is a very serious concept, and they play it completely straight, but the events range from awkward funny to just actually funny. The two men that Jerry hires for the job are small-time criminals Carl Showalter and Gare Grimsrund, and they aren't exactly right for the job. The kidnapping is very sloppy as Jerry's wife naturally fights back and resists, and it leads to a lot of noise, and honestly, one of the things I've always questioned is how did nobody in the neighborhood hear this happening? There had to have been other housewives home, besides Jean. It was a pretty loud scuffle with glass breaking and a lot of screaming, but I don't know, maybe everybody was out at this point. Nevertheless, despite the sloppy nature of the kidnapping, Showalter and Grimsrund do actually manage to do it completely by accident when Jean falls down the stairs. Furthermore, Jerry continuously loses control of this scheme as Jean's father, Wade, is a prideful control freak who immediately wants to take control of the situation. Rightfully so, because he obviously looks at Jerry as a screw-up and is unaware that Jerry, quote-unquote masterminded this whole thing, but then it just makes it harder for Jerry to complete without an issue. He can't exactly tell Wade that the hostage takers only want to deal with Jerry because Wade won't hear it. Wade willfully puts his daughter at risk by over-involving himself in this scheme despite Jerry's warning. The movie more or less is schemy but relatively light up until the turning point of the movie, in which during a traffic stop where Showalter and Grimsrund get pulled over by a state trooper while they have Jean in the back seat, the situation manages to devolve from a simple kidnapping into a triple homicide at the hands of Grimsrund. Said triple homicide brings Marge Gunderson into the plot, who, through her investigation of the murders, uncovers the whole scheme for herself. There's no real main character in the movie, we're led to believe that Jerry's gonna be the main character, but then, Marge comes into the picture and she's clearly the more protagonistic one, but we also follow Carl Showalter just as much as we follow the other two characters, so I guess more or less it's an ensemble cast. Each character has a set goal, with Marge's goal being uncovering the triple homicide, Jerry's goal being obtaining his money so that he can repay his debts and hopefully avoid jail time for the fraud, and Carl is just trying to make this whole harebrained scheme work out in his favor. While technically Fargo does follow the villain protagonist, that being Jerry, with Buscemi being a supporting character, there is a clear-cut, good motivated protagonist, and that is Marge. I would say aside from Jerry's wife and kid, Marge is the only good person in the movie. And as I mentioned, while Jerry is a protagonist in that we follow him for a lot of the movie, he is essentially the villain. Fargo's plot takes a lot of twists and turns and always manages to just hard turn into another lane when it needs to. The phony kidnapping turns into a triple homicide, and Jerry's scheme to get money to cover up one of his minor crimes turns into this huge crime that destroys his life. The whole movie's plot is the result of Jerry coming up with an idea to cover up a mess that he made, but in trying to cover cover that mess up, he made an even bigger mess. And of course, at the end of the story, good does technically prevail, pretty much, but like, everyone involved besides Marge is dead or in jail. It's a bittersweet ending because Gene's dead, Wade is also dead, Jerry's horrible scheme pretty much destroyed the life of himself and his son, but on the sweet side of things, yeah, Marge did at least arrest Grimsrund, and we do see Jerry get arrested at the end. The plot itself isn't anything crazy, but it takes so many twists and turns and is executed perfectly. It's the little things that happen within the basic plot and these twists and turns that make Fargo one of my favorite movies of all time. In my personal opinion, Fargo is one of the greatest movies ever made. It's a great crime drama, but it's also a great dark comedy. Once again, this is the Coen Brothers. They could take something that on paper doesn't look like it would be funny and make it fucking hilarious.
Alright, just keep it still back there, lady, or else we're gonna have to, you know, to shoot you.
Fargo itself is portrayed as a crime drama, but that doesn't mean it can't be fucking hilarious. Some of the greatest crime dramas of all time have humor put into them, from The Sopranos to American Psycho to Breaking Bad. I think allowing people to have a laugh despite the fact they're witnessing murder and tragedy is important to actually making a crime film palatable for all viewers. Referencing The Sopranos, it's like we wouldn't like Tony or Paulie or Christopher if they weren't a little bit funny. And with Fargo, if this movie didn't have the humor dashed into it, it would be pretty depressing. But the importance of making comedy work in a movie like Fargo is in how the scenarios are played. You can't just have slapstick comedy in the middle of your crime drama. Unless, of course, it is warranted by the situation, and that's where Fargo makes the comedy within the serious plot feel natural. Whether it's the situations or the actions the characters take, or just something someone says, the funny moments land, but they don't break the serious tension. One of the major sources of humor in Fargo, and in general with the Coen Brothers movies, is just how dumb the characters play every situation they're given. When we look at Carl Showalter, we don't know too much about his background, but we do get the idea that he is a small-time criminal. We don't exactly know the past of his partner Grimsrund either, but we do get the implication that they were at least somewhat successful at crime to a point where despite jail stints, they continued to follow this lifestyle, and henceforth felt confident enough to involve themselves in Jerry Lundegaard's harebrained scheme. The overall feeling of Jerry's scheme is that it's a situation that's pretty fucking bad, and it just continuously escalates until it's a complete fucking shit show. You get the idea that Jerry thinks this is like a foolproof plan and he's a mastermind, but quite frankly, he's pretty incompetent to begin with. And we get the idea right off the bat that there is no way this is going to work, but it's going to be fucking hilarious to see it play out. Our introductory scene with Jerry has him showing up to a serious meeting in which conspiracy to commit a felony is the key subject, and he shows up an hour late, and rather than apologize or admit he's wrong, he begins to make excuses.
Yeah, but the deal was the car first, then the 40,000. Like as if it was the ransom. I thought Shep told you.
Shep didn't tell us much, Jerry.
Well, okay.
Except that you were going to be here at 7:30.
Yeah, well, that was a mix-up then.
Yeah, you already said that.
Which really tells us what kind of pathetic person Jerry is within the first 5 minutes of the movie. And believe me, Jerry is the most pathetic man possible. He's a weasel, he's a schemer, and while he does hold a position of power to some degree in his workplace, it's only because his father-in-law owns the business. And the movie makes sure to let us know that this man is a pathetic idiot. Shortly after the whole conspiracy thing, we get a display of his managerial impotence when he's dealing with a customer over a car sale. And this is fucking hilarious because he's pathetic. You would never do this as a salesperson.
We had a deal here for $19,500. You sat there and darned if you didn't tell me you'd get me this car, these options, without the sealant for $19,500.
All right, I'm not saying I didn't.
You called me 20 minutes ago and said you had it ready to make delivery. It says, come on down and get it. And here you are, and you're wasting my time and my wife's time, and I'm paying $19,500 for this vehicle here.
The whole True Coat scene, which is one of the funniest scenes in the movie, has Jerry getting chewed out by a customer because the customer said he did not want the sealant, which has Jerry just like do the most pathetic performance as a salesperson ever when he essentially like pretends like he's asking his boss if he can take something off and then like comes back saying he could bump $100 off, as if that's like doing the customer a favor, with him just citing, you know, this True Coat is put on in the factory. They never really let us know, like, is it put on the factory? Is it something that he can't have taken off, or is he just a bullshit liar? Either way, as somebody who's worked in sales and somebody who's worked in an industry in which you have to, like, kind of give incentives to get the customer to pay, you would never, like, tell someone that you're gonna take something off, and then when they come in to pay for it, they, like, you don't take it off, and then give them, like, a mild discount to kind of make them feel like they got something. That's, like, just not what you would do. So not only is Jerry, like, a weaselly, wormy piece of shit, he's also unethical.
He says I can knock $100 off that True Coat.
100. You lied to me, Mr. Lundgaard. You're a bald-faced liar. A fucking liar.
Every bad thing that happens in this movie is Jerry's fault, either directly or indirectly, and it's funny how a pathetic man like Jerry can mastermind a situation that on paper is simple enough, but in execution is planned so poorly that it somehow results in 7 fatalities. And throughout the entire thing, like, his reaction to everything seems more like he's upset for himself because it's not going his way. He avoids all accountability as the scheme quickly falls out of his control on every end. He loses control of the actual kidnapping part because Showalter becomes agitated at how poorly the scheme is going. He lets his father-in-law pretty much overtake the situation despite the fact that it's his fucking hostage situation that he negotiated, and is unable to convince Wade that he needs to be the one to deal with it for Jean's safety, and it just spirals and gets worse and worse. He should have known that his domineering father-in-law, who has no respect for him, probably would have gotten himself overly involved in this. It's not only a stupid idea, but it portrays Jerry's complete lack of foresight.
All the more reason. I don't want you... With all due respect, Jerry, I don't want you mucking this up.
The heck do you mean?
They want my money, they can deal with me. Otherwise, I'm going to a professional.
Now, the most active antagonist besides Jerry that we really watch is Carl Showalter. He's pretty much key to most of the events in the movie going the way that they go. While it's Jerry's poor planning and the general stupidity of the idea that causes these things to go south, it's Showalter that's pretty much present for them all going south. Essentially, everything was going more or less without a hitch, but because Carl forgot to put the temporary tags in the new car that he got from Jerry, him and Gare Grimsrund end up getting pulled over, which leads to the aforementioned triple homicide, which leads to the police involvement in the scheme. Showalter being played by Buscemi automatically means he's going to be a little weasel, and he's going to talk a lot, and he talks a lot in this movie.
Well, fuck it. I don't have to talk either, man. See how you like it. Just total fucking silence. 2 could play at that game, smart guy. We'll just see how you like it. Total silence.
But again, much like Jerry with William H. Macy, Carl Showalter is pretty much a role Steve Buscemi is meant to play. There's nobody else who could have played this character the way Buscemi did. He's easily the funniest character in the movie, and when shit hits the fan, it's him that just kinda gets the worst of it, at least on a physical level. The way they wrote the character and his arc makes it so, like, he's enjoyable to watch, but he's unlikable to the point that when something bad happens to him, it's hilarious. You love seeing it. Like when Shep Proudfoot starts to realize that he's getting some blowback from this whole ordeal, he shows up to Showalter's hotel and beats him with a belt, and it's fucking hilarious. After being beaten with a belt, Showalter is completely frustrated and just wants out and starts demanding the money early, which causes Jerry's father-in-law to take control of the situation, which leads to Showalter just blowing Wade away. But in that whole scenario, he gets shot in the face with a revolver, which inevitably leads to him being in such a bad mood that despite having $1 million all to himself, he tries to cheap out on buying out his half of the car, which causes Grimsrund to kill him. The character of Carl Showalter undergoes what is commonly referred to on TV tropes as the humiliation conga line. It was supposed to be a quick and easy scheme, but it's not, and it's how Buscemi sells everything that makes it so funny. He's a funny guy when he gets hurt, so it does nothing but add to the picture, but even when he's not getting hurt, like when he fails to bribe a state trooper with the $50 bill...
Must have slipped my mind. So maybe the best thing to do would be to take care of that right here in Brainerd.
What's this, sir?
My license and registration.
Put that back in your pocket, please. And step out of the car, please, sir.
When he has a crash out over the $4 fee for the parking garage, it's just pure fucking gold.
Long-term parking charges by the day.
I guess you think you're, like an authority figure? That stupid fucking uniform, huh, buddy? King clip-on tie there, big fucking man, huh? You know, these are the limits of your life, man. Rule of your little fucking gate here. Here. Here's your $4, you pathetic piece of shit.
But aside from all of that shit, there's just humor moments littered throughout this serious crime drama, even in just the basic dialogue itself. Like when Jerry brings a real estate proposal to Wade and finds out that Wade wasn't going to front him the money, but was just going to give him a percentage like a finder's fee, and then take over the entire investment.
I don't need a finder's fee. I need... Finder's fees, what, 10%? Heck, that's not going to do it for me. I need the principal.
Well, Jerry, we're not going to just give you $750,000.
What the heck were you thinking?
Or when Deputy Lou doesn't make the connection with the DLR plate.
With a tag starting DLR, they don't got no match yet.
I'm not sure that I agree with you 100% on your police work there, Lou.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that vehicle there probably had dealer plates. DLR?
Oh. Jeez.
Even Marge Gunderson's overall disposition and mannerisms play themselves straight but provide comic relief because she's just like Midwestern and she's kind of goofy. And a lot of the humor just comes from the Midwest stereotypes, like them just talking can provide comic relief, which, along with mixing in humor with the dark situations, is a staple of the Coen Brothers' entire filmmaking career. And I absolutely love like how Fargo turned the Midwest stereotype into a thing. Just all the yas and oh Jeeses, like I swear because of this movie I say oh geez like way more than I should. Like, I'm not Midwestern. I mean, I guess technically I'm kind of Midwest because Toronto is, like, geographically adjacent. Like, I'm a Great Lakes region person, and sometimes you can probably hear a little bit of Midwest creep in. Aside from burn after reading, the depiction of regional stereotypes in this movie is so great that it may be exaggerated, but it's completely embraced. Whenever I meet a Midwesterner, like, I always make a Fargo reference, and they seem to be kind of happy with it to some degree. If you watch Fargo, you think you might be getting into, like, a serious crime movie, and there are some pretty dark moments, but it is just fucking hilarious all the way through. Even some of the most horrid shit that happens in this movie can garner a chuckle.
Come on! Shut the fuck up!
The Minnesota/North Dakota setting is not only part of Fargo's identity in terms of the story and the characters, but in the overall aesthetic as well. That little part of the Midwest, much like where I live in Canada, is very wintry, and there are a ton of shots that depict this. Even the opening shot where we see Jerry heading to Fargo, North Dakota to meet with Showalter and Grimsrund, we get a beautiful snowy shot of the horizon as his car draws in closer to the camera. Throughout the movie, we are treated to so many different bits of cinematography that just makes like the barren white landscape of Minnesota and North Dakota look just absolutely gorgeous. We got the opening shot, like highway scene with the dark skies when Showalter and Grimsrund get pulled over. We just get a lot of shots of white roads and various colored lights that is just beautiful on screen. They managed to make a region of the world that many look at as a boring place into something that's desolate but not without its beauty. And even when they're in the city, like the Coen Brothers and their cinematographer Roger Deakins just got the most out of every shot they had. The parking garage scene, again, looks absolutely fabulous. Combine that with their slightly exaggerated depiction of the Minnesota, North Dakota customs, like the Minnesota niceness and the accents and everything, and truly Fargo does what it can to bring the Midwest to life. It's a real part of the world, but they created like kind of a fantastical wonder world out of this snowy landscape. This movie has convinced me that if I were to live anywhere besides Toronto, it would probably be Maine, but then Minnesota, like rural Minnesota, seems like it's very tranquil and I'd probably consider it. The overall setting that they have here, it does kind of make it like a comfort movie. Like, I'll put this movie on during the winter, like, it's great. It's in the same kind of boat as like John Carpenter's The Thing, as like a comforting winter movie.
Yeah, Wade, it's Jerry. Wade, it's Jerry. We gotta talk. It's something hard, geez. It's terrible. Yeah, Wade Gustafson, please.
The entire premise of Fargo is that every bad thing that happens is a result of someone's own personal flaws. The plot itself would not have taken off had Jerry Lundegaard not given into his own greed and taken out fraudulent loans.
Yeah, but I already got the... It's okay. The loans are in place. I already got the what?
Yeah, the $320,000. You got the money last month.
Yeah, so we're all set then.
Yeah, but the vehicles that you're borrowing on, I just can't read the serial numbers on your application. Maybe if you could just read them.
Yeah, but the deal's already done. I already got the money.
Had he not found himself in hot water over said loans, he would have never had to desperately hatch this stupid, phony kidnapping scheme. But even when given chances to right his wrongs, he never takes them. For example, when he presents that real estate proposal for that parking lot to his father-in-law Wade, he could have taken the finder's fee. And while that wouldn't have solved his immediate financial issues, it certainly would have helped build a better relationship with his father-in-law, who, like, on the offset did not respect him at all or like him, but actually did seem impressed with the offer. Had Jerry not given into his desperation, he could have had a more fruitful relationship that he could have built himself for future business dealings. Jerry is the embodiment of the sin of greed, which is an overall theme in Fargo as a whole, but he's also a coward, which plays into this even more. Jerry creates this situation and loses complete control of it, both to the kidnappers he hired as well as to his domineering father-in-law, which is why the scheme reaches the point of no return, because Jerry just did not have any way to control this monster that he created. On the other end of things, we have a major character flaw with Wade. He is very prideful. When Jerry presents him with this whole kidnapping scenario, like, Wade just wants to overtake the situation. Something Jerry probably should have anticipated but didn't. It's made very clear that Wade has no respect for Jerry and therefore doesn't trust Jerry, and insists on being overly involved in the situation despite the fact that Jerry has expressly told him that the kidnappers are only to deal with him. Wade is a shrewd businessman and an entrepreneur, but in terms of dealing with criminals, he is completely out of his element. Even more so than Jerry. Wade believes that he can confront a violent criminal who kidnapped his daughter for a ransom and put on his John Wayne act.
Where's my damn daughter? No Gene, no money.
Drop that fucking money!
No Gene, no money.
He thinks that his stern approach to business applies in this tense and dangerous situation, and it's what gets him killed. Granted, he does get a shot off, but his ego and his pride is ultimately what led to this happening to him. Well, that and of course Jerry, making this whole scheme up in the first place. And while Wade's actions are somewhat understandable given that his daughter is in danger, but even earlier on, greed also does play into his overall approach. It's very clear, since it's his money that's being paid, that he doesn't want anybody handing it off but himself. And greed does play into his overall approach as well, because earlier in the movie, when Jerry introduces the whole kidnapping scenario to him, his first instinct is to try and lowball the ransom request.
Well, why don't we... Stan, I'm thinking we should offer him $500,000, eh?
Now, come on here. No way, Wade. No way.
We're not horse trading here, Wade.
When I was writing this out, I was like, there might be like a 7 deadly sins of Fargo type thing to do here, but not really. It's like maybe 2 or 3 different sins, not including greed, which is layered into every single character. Jerry is like greed and sloth. It's shown that if he was able to apply himself more, he would be successful with his real estate deal. And it's very clear that due to his laziness, he's taken a lot of shortcuts. Wade is pride and greed. He's prideful and isn't willing to fold, and part of this is motivated by his greed. And Carl Showalter is like greed but also wrath, because a few times his greed causes anger, and it's his greed that gets him killed. And then you got other characters in here, like Grimsrund himself is like just wrath all around, because he does the most violent crimes in the movie. Every aspect of the scheme that goes wrong is because of somebody's personal flaws. Showalter's laziness, which I guess throws him also into the sloth category, with putting the temporary tags on here, caused him to get pulled over. Grimsrund's violent impulses and Jerry's worminess and greediness all play a part in making this just like go to shit. And it doesn't help that Wade's own pride causes things to spiral and go completely out of control when he over-involves himself. Everybody dies in this movie because they're greedy. I think like the funniest case of this is Buscemi not buying out the car because like he had $1 million that he was hiding from his partner. He could have just taken the money out of his half of the $40,000 that he he was like, that he had there, but no, he fucked up. Much like Return of the Living Dead, and this is a very odd comparison, and it's obviously like a common movie trope, but hear me out. Fargo is just a bad situation that has every character involved in the situation make every wrong step in handling said situation. The phony kidnapping was already a pretty bad idea to begin with, but then you sparkle in the lack of control that everyone has, and it gets worse. Like, the kidnapping was the easy part, but then driving the victim out at night in an unregistered car, like, already put the scenario in jeopardy. On Jerry's end, hinging on your prideful old-school father-in-law to cooperate with you and let you handle the deal when he has no respect for you shows a complete lack of foresight on Jerry's part. Fargo's a consistently escalating conflict that just gets worse and spirals more out of control because of the character's inherent flaws as people. Essentially, we follow the bad guys throughout the movie, and we get a check-in from the only protagonist character in the movie from time to time. Like, Marge Gunderson is the only one in here who seems to have not that many character flaws. And as a result, she kind of acts as the moral compass. At the end of the day, the movie does fall into the trope of the police officer being the only true moral compass in terms of the overarching plot. But it's not really because Marge is a police officer, it's because Marge Gunderson is genuinely a good moral person. The Coen Brothers like to do that kind of Old Testament-y, biblical, like, lesson learned thing. But at its core, Marge is a good cop just doing her job in investigating the triple homicide she comes across. And to be completely honest, while she does uncover the plot, it's only really half of her good police work and half luck. And that's not saying anything bad about Marge as a character, it's just the crime itself is so bizarre, and it's just complete happenstance that she happened to come across it. At the onset of her introduction to the plot, she just seems like a regular Midwestern wife. She's pregnant, so there's an element of danger to her being involved in this situation, but realistically, she's never really there when things pop off. Because while the plot is moving forward, she's just trying to put the pieces together herself, and she has her own little misadventures along the way. Such as that weird run-in with an old high school friend who's trying to bang her. You know, Mike Yamagita, the guy who says his wife died of leukemia, but then it turns out he was lying and he's actually crazy and a stalker. It's a really random moment to put in the movie, but it's there for a reason. At first, when Marge gets to the triple homicide crime scene, we do get the presentation of her as a bumbling police officer, and it would be expected that that would be her role, to be like a comic relief bumbling small-town cop.
You see something down there, Chief?
No, I just think I'm gonna barf.
Jeez. You okay, Margie?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just morning sickness. Well, that passed.
Yeah?
But while her character does provide comic relief via her cheery demeanor and mannerisms, she isn't a bumbling cop. She's competent, she's just a little bit goofy. Her actual police work is solid. At the end of the day, while Marge's footwork does help her uncover the plot, it's really thanks to another officer and a good Samaritan that they even get a gauge on where the criminals are. By the time Marge gets to everything, Jerry has fled, Showalter is dead, hey that rhymed, and the kidnapping victim is also dead. And keep in mind, she had no idea that there was even a kidnapping involved. She's kind of just in the dark on the whole ordeal. While she does catch one of the bad guys in the end, the entire tragedy fails to be averted, and you can kind of tell that, well, she's gonna still be the same person she was when we met her. The whole ordeal just kind of shook her worldview a little bit. You can tell her lecturing Grimsrund isn't her trying to really lecture him, it's just her kind of trying to make sense of everything and apply her moral compass to it. She's clearly upset by the fact that this all happened over money, even though she doesn't know the exact reasoning behind it. It's basically like she can't comprehend the amount of tragedy that came about all in the name of greed. She just simply does not think like that, and she isn't money motivated, so to see so much death and ruination of lives in the name of cash just kind of shakes her a little bit.
How's it look, Marge?
Well, he's got his gun on his hip there, and he looks like a nice enough guy. It's a real shame.
Yeah.
All in all, the movie is a tragedy with a dash of comedy littered into it, but by the end of the movie, 7 people are dead, 2 are in jail, and a kid pretty much has lost his entire family, all in the span of a couple days. And the biggest victims of all of this are Jerry's family, his son Scotty and his wife Jean. Scotty loses both of his parents, with his mom being killed and his dad going to jail, likely for a very long time, as well as his grandfather. So while Scotty is likely going to inherit Wade's fortune, he's gonna end up in the system unless, of course, Stan Grossman steps up and adopts him. And going back to the whole lack of foresight thing, like, Jean got murdered because for some reason Showalter felt that it was necessary to leave her in the capable hands of a psychopath.
Fuck happened to her?
She started shrieking, you know.
The saddest thing about all of this is, while this is of course fiction, shit like this does happen sometimes in real life. Maybe not on as wide a scale, but as flawed humans, we oftentimes cause tragedies in the pursuit of something we want. Be it something minor or something major, human beings will ruin the lives of others for personal gain if given the chance. I think the saddest thing is, Jerry ruined his son's life, got his wife killed, and really has nothing to show for it because he got arrested. Wade, despite being kind of a dickhead, didn't exactly deserve to die either, even if he did willingly put himself in danger and antagonize a dangerous criminal. And looking at Jerry, like, his punishment will likely be severe. I mean, he didn't directly kill anybody, but he did commit several felonies, and he will likely end up getting at the very least a few decades in prison. At the very worst, he does have the potential to get a sentence of life without the possibility of parole for all of this. Basically, when it comes down to what Jerry is looking at in terms of his sentencing and what crimes he committed, I can kind of break it down just a little bit, like just on a basic level. Now, from what I've read, in the state of Minnesota, if you partake in a crime in which a fatality occurs, you don't get any sort of like accessory after the fact. You are considered to be just as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger. So in essence, Jerry is looking at potentially 5 counts of murder because at least 5 fatalities could be directly linked to this scheme. Showalter killing the parking lot attendant would probably be left out, and Grimsrun killing Showalter would likely be left out, but the state trooper, the 2 passerbys, and Jean would definitely be attributed to Jerry. One could possibly argue that Jerry could pull the whole, well, I didn't mean for this to be a whole violent thing, but no, that would be thrown out because he did speak with Showalter the day after the 3 murders took place, and he was well aware that they happened. The only saving grace here is that might not come up in court if they can't prove that he had that conversation. So immediately, he could potentially face a 1st or 2nd degree murder charge, which in the state of Minnesota could potentially land him life without the possibility of parole. The 3 on the highway he might be able to get away with to some degree, but the fact that the kidnapping resulted in the death of his wife, that seals his fate. But let's say, for whatever reason, the whole defense that he never wanted this scheme to go violent actually holds up. He still has several different charges that he's facing, both state and federal, most of which are felonies. He has conspiracy to commit a kidnapping because he plotted this whole ordeal. Even if it was like a phony kidnapping scenario, he plotted it. Jean wasn't in on it, so yeah, he's guilty of that most likely. He also withheld evidence of the murders that happened during this conspiracy, so then even if he doesn't get hit with the murder charges, he's still guilty of that. Furthermore, he also has his bank/wire fraud case for the loan he took out fraudulently. And of course, I don't know how much this one works, but he did flee the interview with Margie, so that could have been considered like some sort of like resisting, I don't know. But like best case scenario, he's probably looking at least 20 to 30 years in prison, at which point he could potentially get paroled for good behavior. But worst case scenario, Jerry could quite possibly be looking at life without the possibility of parole. Again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert, I don't know if Legal Eagle's ever done a video on Fargo. I think he should, he'd probably do a pretty good job of it. But based on like my very baseline knowledge of like a general legal system, that's likely what would end up happening to Jerry. In all honesty, on a recent rewatch, I found myself wondering what would happen to the kid and how his life went after this. Like, who knows? Maybe Noah Hawley could do a season of Fargo based on that. But nevertheless, it's a tragedy all around. And the tragedy is that this all could have been avoided if people kept their worst traits in check.
Okay, I'll do a damn lot count.
Sir, right now?
Yeah, right now. You're darn tootin'. So damn important to you.
I'm sorry, sir.
Ah, what the Christ.
Honestly, this is gonna be a short one, because, like, I don't really talk about the music of the films that I review, unless there's, like, I think the only review off the top of my head where I did that was Young Guns. Like, I didn't even talk about Ennio Morricone / John Carpenter's score for The Thing. But the score from Fargo is just so perfectly fitting. It's very atmospheric and fits, like, the Dakota / Minnesota landscape that they show, but it also fits the theme of the movie perfectly. It's got its, like, kind of tragic triumph sound to it, but it also does have a sort of air to it where it's like, you can just feel how stupid the characters are when you listen to the score. Or in the case of, like, when the cop gets killed or when Wade gets killed, like, it's bombastic and almost tragic sounding. Carter Burwell did the score for this, and I actually really do like his work, like, in general. Like, he did the score for Psycho 3. What he likes to do is he comes up with, like, a theme for whatever he's doing, and then he, like, does variations of that theme. In the bumpers, when I use little bits of the music, yeah, there's like a score, but he does, like, several different variations of the main Fargo theme that fit into the movie that play at certain points. Again, I'm not like a musical expert, so I'm not going to go into, like, the technical bits, but I do genuinely enjoy the score to this movie to the point that I'm, like, using bits of it for my bumpers. Typically, to avoid copyright issues, I would just put some generic-ass video game music in there. But no, I do have an affinity for this score, and I do love the themes, I love the little, like, music cues. It's just very well done, and it's, like, fitting and kind of not fitting at the same time. Like, it seems like some of the music's a little too whimsical for the movie, but it works on so many levels. Every little piece of music that Carter Burwell composed for this movie captures the feel and the setting perfectly. Fargo may not be the general pick for what is the best Coen Brothers movie, and it's really hard to say which Coen Brothers movie is the best, because let's face it, as far as prestige filmmakers go, they may actually be one of the most consistent examples. In my personal opinion, I think Fargo is my favorite. It's maybe just slightly above The Big Lebowski and Miller's Crossing. On a first watch, you're guessing where it's gonna go next, with every twist and turn being more crazy and causing more escalation than the last. On a rewatch, you can really take in the performances of the actors and the craftsmanship behind the characters. And the movie leaves itself open-ended enough that you can have theories on where things went. The movie presents everything to you up front, but the events unfold in such a great way. It's, like, pretty close to being a perfect movie. The only complaints I have about it are pretty minor. For one, I wish Jean got a little bit more characterization. They essentially do introduce her, and they show that she is a good and likable person who doesn't deserve what's happening to her, but for the rest of the movie, she has a bag over her head and doesn't really have any lines. All she does is scream and panic, which, yes, is a realistic depiction. I just wish we got a little bit more development. The only other problem I have with Fargo is right before the climax, how that other cop is the one who gets the tip and how Marge just happens upon it. I get it, having Marge go to the interview with that random bystander and then go and find Grimsrun would be a little convoluted, and it would kind of hurt the gelling of the movie, but it also kind of just bugs me that they go to this character that we only see once in the movie and have him get the last clue. I don't know. To me, it's just a little weird. It doesn't break the movie or anything. Like, I get why they did it, but I don't know. But the flaws in this movie are just very minimal, and still would consider this movie, like, 99% perfect. It's funny, it's got intensity, and it has some of the greatest depictions of scumbags in cinema history. The Coens struck gold by landing both Steve Buscemi and William H. Macy in these roles. It's pretty graphic when it gets violent, but that violence doesn't overshadow the other elements of the movie. It's just a perfect little story. Again, this is a comfort movie. I watched this every winter. Fargo itself was a true success story for the Coen Brothers. It not only made $60 million against its $7 million budget, but it was critically acclaimed for its humor as well as its storytelling. And as such, it was nominated for 7 Oscars that year that it came out, 2 of which it won. It was nominated for Best Picture, but lost out to that god-awful English Patient movie, but it did manage to secure Best Original Screenplay as well as Best Actress for Frances McDormand. In terms of how I would do a crime drama, this is probably the baseline. Like, you know how, like I said, Napoleon Dynamite would be how I do a comedy movie? This would be how I do, like, a dark comedy crime drama. Much like every Coen Brothers movie, besides a few, it's executed so perfectly, and it shows and tells enough, but it doesn't quite go overboard with it. It's a work of fiction, but the based on a true story moniker is preserved by knowing how far to go and when to stop. It's just a wonderful movie to watch for the performances, for the story, for the cinematography, for the comedy, and for the thrills. You just never really know where this movie's gonna go next, and that's why it's so great. The legacy of Fargo would far surpass its release date in 1996, and inadvertently would end up kind of becoming the only franchise out of the Coen Brothers filmography.
There's more to life than a little money, you know. Don't you know that?
The legacy that Fargo left behind would far transcend what it did for the Coen Brothers. Yes, this was the movie that propelled them to being like those top-tier filmmakers that everybody knows them as, but the movie itself would leave an impact on pop culture for years to come. Like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but anytime I meet somebody from, like, the Midwest and hear them talk, I make a Fargo reference. A lot of people associate Steve Buscemi with this film. I would say this and Reservoir Dogs are probably 2 of his most iconic roles. And obviously, yes, when it comes to the most popular Coen Brothers movie, I think that is probably The Big Lebowski. But Fargo has left an impact in its own way, and it's one of the few Coen Brothers movies that has been expanded upon. And unlike The Big Lebowski, it was expanded upon in a way that many people actually liked. Following the success of Fargo, a pilot was made for a proposed police procedural TV series that would follow the continued story of Marge Gunderson. While Frances McDormand and John Carroll Lynch would not reprise their roles for this TV pilot, Edie Falco of The Sopranos fame and Matt Malloy would take over both of those parts, with Bruce Bond, who played Deputy Lou, returning as the kind of comic relief side character, I guess. I haven't really watched this pilot in a while. Essentially, the show would be a police procedural in which Marge would investigate a crime of the week every week in Brainerd or the surrounding area. It essentially took place after the movie. The pilot was made in 1997 and it was directed by Kathy Bates, but it would only see the light of day in 2003 when it was presented as a made-for-TV movie. But that would not be the last we'd see of the concept of Fargo on television. In the early 2010s, Noah Hawley of Legion fame would work with FX to create a Fargo television series. And if you couldn't tell by the fact that I named this video The Genius of Fargo Chapter 1, yes, I am going to be doing the TV series. I'm going to be doing each season in a video at some point in time. So I'm not going to get too much into the TV series right now, but I'll give you a brief rundown of it. Essentially, the Fargo TV series is an anthology TV series set in the same region with a bit of a connection to the movie and then subsequently connections to each season. Essentially creating like a Fargo shared universe in which all these different stories do exist in the same world but are mostly unconnected, aside for a few references. The first season of Fargo does connect directly to the movie, but from that point forward it expands into this connected universe of true crime stories in the Midwest that are all narratively placed in a book titled The History of True Crime in the Midwest. So when you're watching the Fargo movie or any of the shows, you can just imagine this is just something that has been documented in this fictional book. That is how Noah Hawley pictured the movie, and that's subsequently how he pictures his TV show. Each season does take its own direction, but it does follow the general themes of both Fargo and many other Coen Brothers movies, and quite frankly, it's a show that should be looked at on the same levels as shows like Breaking Bad or The Sopranos, but for some reason or another, while still garnering critical praise, has kind of just stayed at like a certain level. It doesn't have that like stigma that The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or The Wire has. And I'm hoping to maybe change that with my videos. So I hope you enjoyed the genius of Fargo Chapter 1, but we still have at least 5 more chapters to go. And trust me, like, I don't have anything bad really to say about the show. Like, if anything, like, my love of Fargo as a concept has only been enhanced by having 5 seasons of a show set in the same universe. But aside from that, just looking at the movie on its own, like, its legacy, it's like one of the greatest dark comedy movies ever made. It has that perfect balance where it's funny, but it maintains its seriousness and never treats its plot like a joke, even though there are jokes within the plot. It's a comedy, but it maintains a certain level of integrity to keep it from being ridiculous. Fargo's strong enough as a movie to have its own legacy, but that legacy is only strengthened with 5 great seasons of a TV show that follow its general presentation and themes while still being its own thing. At the end of the day, though, even though it is a work of fiction, I mean, it's not that far off. People will often do horrible things in the name of greed, and they'll make horrible decisions that make bad situations worse. That's a theme in the movie, and that is a theme within the TV show. The legacy of Fargo cannot be understated for both the series itself and for the career of the Coen Brothers, as well as the many actors involved. And yes, I started this video last year, but I did just end up finishing it recently. So in that meantime, we've actually reached Fargo's 30th birthday, so happy birthday, Fargo. What are your thoughts on Fargo? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share me with your friends, leave a comment, and feel free to go watch the show because I'm going to be reviewing that. I don't want to spoil anything for you. You've got plenty of time because I do have other stuff I'm working on, but if you live in Canada, Fargo's on Crave. If you live in the States, it's on Hulu. Go nuts, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, I guarantee you your money back.
I'm not talking about your damn word, Jerry. Jeez, what the heck are you...
We're not a bank, Jerry.